So, here we are. Voltron Season 8 has aired, and with that over 2 years of theorizing, it means that the series is done. All I have to say is, what was that? I, like many other fans, have a lot of emotions about the final season of Voltron Legendary Defender, and a lot of them are not good. Many fans feel robbed from all the time and effort they put into loving the show, only for it to end up like where almost no character's ending felt satisfying. Now that's not to say that nobody enjoyed the final season. Yes, I know there are a few you out there, and I will admit there were some good moments in the last season. But for the majority of fans, especially those that were really invested in the show, this is more or less the worst case scenario for what we thought this season would be. As a huge fan of the show, I felt like I should explain why people saw this as the case. So, welcome to the 60 plus reasons why Voltron Season 8 was bad. And this isn't even a comprehensive list because I know I missed a few things. Now, some of these reasons may come off as petty or insignificant, but most of these things I saw as complaints from multiple people who are unhappy with the ending. There is a ton to talk about. This is probably self-explanatory, but here's a spoiler warning for Season 8. So for a good portion of this video, I'm going to be recording my face because it just makes the editing process so much easier when I do that. I'm also going to be looking off to the side because I got a ton of notes there, but I'm not going to be reading off the script totally for the whole thing because it's a lot of reasons, man. So first off, before you call me a total hater, I'll let you know that I did like a lot of things from the season actually. Well, quite a few. Some. Okay, so first I liked a couple of what you would call the fillery episodes, like Day 47, Clear Day, and even like Launch Date 2. Those were all pretty entertaining to me, even though some, it was varying degrees of like how important they actually were in the season, what their purpose was, So I love backstories as well, so, learning about Lotor's backstory in the second episode of the season was great. I loved it even more the second time I watched it, even though, I'll get into this later, but it made us feel bad about Lotor, which sucked. And also, one other thing is that, seeing the original Paladins again was pretty nice. And finally, I would say my favorite thing probably from the whole season is that we got to see a Voltron and Atlas fusion, which I'm going to call either Voltus or White Lion, because I've seen those names go around, a couple names. I like that. Fusion, always my thing, and I love, and also it just kind of reminds me of Digimon. There's probably other mechas or anime that have done it before, but I've seen Digimon, so here we are. So, even though that, many fans are conflicted by the ending, and I felt like I should explain each of these points in detail the best I can, because there's just a lot of conflict, or I guess debate about this season as a whole. And, it'd be fun to explain. So, let's begin. So, honestly, I decided to start off with talking about Allura and her death, even though, let's go big, because that's, one of probably the most, debated aspect of the season. Should that have happened? Should it not have happened? So, for those of you who aren't really too big into the fandom, you may be surprised to learn that in October of this year, so not very long ago, there were some huge Voltron leaks, and a lot of people were suspicious of them. There was some inconsistencies, whatever, and unfortunately they turned out to be true. So that means, oh my god, there's a bug. They turned out to be true, so that meant that Allura would die, and the leaks made it seem like maybe she was gonna die, because it had her, her crying, and we saw Lance next to her. It's just a sad moment. So we thought either she would die or she would, go off. Maybe she was with the Alteans, maybe she was with the colony and trying to help fix things. So that's why she was on Earth and we saw a statue of her. Maybe, maybe she was still alive. But no, she was not alive, which really sucked for a lot of people, because a lot of people, kind of saw her as, she was the main woman of color pretty much in the whole cast. And so that was really tragic to see her go like that, especially after, everything she had lost throughout the show, her family, her home. She gave up pretty much everything, and then now she lost her life, which really is sad to see. And I can't explain it too well because I'm not the most articulate person, but other people definitely could talk about this for hours, probably. So, because come on, guys, shouldn't she have been brought back at least, Shiro was brought back from the dead? I love him, so I'm glad he was, but Allura should have got the same treatment. What the heck? She could bring herself back, from, all the realities are fixed, but she didn't bring herself back, I guess. She couldn't, obviously, but dang, it's just really disappointing, or sad. I guess a lot of people were very conflicted about that. But I need to move on, because there's so much else. So maybe you'll notice, but it did really seem like the team kind of gave up on Allura really, really fast compared to, you know, maybe season 1 or any of the other seasons where, you know, it was a real fight for anyone to, like, leave the team, do anything risky. But here the team just like, oh, she's got to go. Okay, I understand, Allura. We'll miss you. Hug. That was it. Yeah, so they just accept it. And a lot of people are mad about that. And it felt like a disservice to the whole theme of found family with Voltron that they just gave her up so quickly. So one thing that I actually didn't realize the first time watching, and because I'm still rewatching it, but a lot of fans noticed that Coran actually didn't get to say goodbye to Allura, because it was only, I believe, the Paladins and Shiro, not a Paladin anymore, and Hagar there during her, you know, goodbye, her farewell thing. So that really sucks. Like, what? Coran was like literally her guardian. We got that stated in the first episode of the season. It just really sucks. So, I mean, but speaking of Coran, he got the short end of the stick for like a few reasons. He didn't really, if we're gonna talk about like the epilogue in the end, we don't really know what he's doing, like, at all in the epilogue, which really sucks because I mean everyone else did, and he's been there since the first episode. So what's with that? Not very fair. So now I would like to get into some stuff that, probably the things that frustrated me the most this season. And of course, because Shiro's my favorite, to see him done dirty like that, it makes me really sad. So let's talk about Shiro now. So first off would be how essentially they made Keith and Shiro strangers. I don't know if you guys noticed, but through the past 7 seasons of Voltron, it has been very clear that Keith and Shiro are, you know, best friends, and they've known each other for a while, and they would do anything to save each other. And that just wasn't there in this season. They barely addressed each other. They didn't talk like they used to. They didn't have any time to, you know, talk about anything really besides like war stuff. I know, of course, this was a war or whatever, but still, it was very out of character, I felt, for them. So actually, I don't know if I'm not getting mad at me for going into this for some of you, but from some people I've heard that actually, well, it's a rumor, but it kind of makes sense. So in season 7, Shiro got revealed as gay, which is amazing because, you know, that's some good representation for, you know, in Western animation. We haven't really seen that too much. And then, you know, we saw that he broke up with his ex-boyfriend Adam. Then, you know, Shiro saves Keith at the end of season 7. No, sorry, Keith saves Shiro. They have a nice moment. But then season 8, nothing, basically. Which means that possibly, maybe execs or somebody was like, well, you can't have Shiro and Keith interacting too much like that. They can't, you know, you can't have a gay man interacting with, you know, Keith, because that will, you know, that could be suggestive of something. And I don't know if that's the truth, but that, it's like, what? Why didn't they interact? I know they did have 7 seasons together, but yeah, that's disappointing that they just changed it so drastically. There are a couple ways that I feel like that could be fixed pretty easily. They don't have to be like doing Black Paladins all over again, but I feel like that could have been fixed, and I'll get into fixing some things at the end of the video, I believe. So yeah, so there's some other things, of course. So do you remember in season 8 when Keith was held hostage by Zethrid? Well, yeah, he was, and it took, I believe Veronica is the one who shot Zethrid, and, you know, was able to save the day, kind of, and then eventually Zethrid got redeemed. Whatever, we'll get into that later. But wait, you know how Shiro is usually the one to do that? You know, how he was the one who always would be there for Keith, you know, pretty much do anything for him. No, that wasn't there. So instead, like, people mentioned he looked like the surprise Pikachu meme. Even though he was there, he just held his gun up, kind of, apparently, in the show, and didn't shoot or anything. Like, this is not the Shiro we know, I believe. So, so, you know, it's just sad. Hashtag not my Shiro once again. Now, one thing that's bugged me for forever, basically, is the fact that Shiro never got a backstory of any sort, really, and, you know, he really had no actual, like, biological family introduced in the show, which everyone else did, so that really sucks for Shiro. You know, I just always felt bad about that. But, you know, what really sucked is that in the first episode, you know, Shiro was like, everyone go with their families, go, you know, hang out with your families on the last day on Earth. And then what happens? Well, Shiro doesn't really hang out with anybody, does he? It's almost like rubbing in his face, I felt like. Yes, he did have Adam, but I mean, this season didn't even mention him, so I guess that's it about Shiro. Would have been nice to get that though. So moving on, let's talk about Keith. And, you know, speaking of his family, he didn't even actually really talk to his mom or, you know, have to do much with her this season, which, you know, was very out of character for both of them. He even called her Krolia instead of mom, which was like a big development last season, I believe. So that was really painful to see. And also when Keith was held hostage, apparently he lost his blade, the Galran blade his mom gave him, and it was never mentioned again, which makes no sense because that blade must have meant so much to him. It's crazy. So this season makes a lot of strange decisions, and basically Keith didn't do too much this season. I mean, it's not the biggest point to say that, oh, you know, that was terrible, because he's always done stuff for the past like 6 seasons. He's had a big role. But still, like, even when it came to Zarkon, he didn't do much at all with other paladins did. I know there was like a whole connection thing, but still, it was just kind of like, Keith, you're just here, buddy. Even though he was kind of the leader, but even then he didn't act like very much like Keith. He acts kind of different. Yeah, so, and also they could have explored his Galra heritage bit, which is a bummer that they didn't. So now I'm going to talk about probably the most divisive part of the season, which happened to, you know, happen in the last like 2 minutes of the show, not counting the credits, which was the terrible epilogue. I mean, of course some people liked it, but most of the fans, if they had not included this, it would have been a much better series finale. Of course there was still issues like Allura dying, but I would say the epilogue of the series finale was just very terrible. And it was actually put in last minute, most likely as damage control. So let me explain the whole debacle for you guys that actually don't know too much about that situation. So this whole debacle goes back to San Diego Comic-Con of this year, and I actually went, and it was an amazing experience. Everyone screamed a lot when when Adam was revealed, and just a whole other parts of that episode, amazing. Like last good con. After that, all the only panels were like not as good. But basically, ever since then, the media, not only the media, but like Netflix itself, you know, all the creators, everything, they were hyping up Shiro, you know, having time to interact with Adam. But what did we get? Adam dying within like 2 minutes of screen time. Basically, the time after we saw him in, you know, when he broke up with Shiro, we saw him again, and it was for him to die. So a lot of fans were understandably extremely mad. Now, this backlash may have caused DreamWorks to panic, or maybe just to show creators themselves to panic, like, oh, we need to do something about this. We need to fix this. Maybe, you know, maybe let's try to fix it by adding an epilogue and, you know, tying up some things to make, you know, so Shiro can end up with somebody, because that's what people wanted, right? Well, most of the fans would say that is not what we wanted. In fact, we would have rather Shiro not got married at the end, because that's what happened in that epilogue, and to almost a random person, no less. That's just pretty sad. And think about this. Shiro got married to Curtis, which was the guy's name that he married. You'll know that if you had subtitles on. Maybe you missed it. A lot of people don't recognize him, but he was actually in the season and a little bit of season 7. But he got married to Curtis. And in the last 10 seconds of the show, mind you, which was basically the last time we saw the whole team, Shiro getting married was the last thing we saw. Not about the team, but about Shiro getting married. And that was his endgame. Marriage. Everyone else had, you know, their kind of noble things they did, well, maybe except Lance, which I'll get to later, but yeah, it was pretty sad to see. But actually, what's funny about this situation is that Shiro was not supposed to originally marry Curtis. He was in fact supposed to marry a random dude who was actually, it looked like he was an Easter egg from a Macross series in the first episode of the series. This dude, I'm not going to show the leaks for, because I don't want this video game to take it down, but basically one of the leaks showed Shiro getting married to this random dude. So Curtis marrying Shiro might have been backlash to the backlash, which was crazy. And just really, really sad. Like, why? Yeah, so you may even notice that they might have inserted Curtis into other scenes later on. Like, you'll see in Clear Day, he just kind of like teleports and his jaw changes in the 2 scenes right next to each other. Makes like no sense, but just more damage control, which really sucks. So wouldn't it be cool, you know, if Allura could have brought back Adam instead, like, when she fixed all realities, maybe, or she brought back all realities? That probably would have helped things out a bit. And, you know, besides that, it's really a disservice to Shiro as a character. Shiro was the one who always wanted to, you know, go to space, who loved being a paladin, and who loved being captain of the Atlas. Then for him to retire from the battlefield after getting married like that is just really sad. Like, that doesn't make any sense to his character. You know, and he's the only one that got married that we know. So everyone else, you know, kind of lived their lives doing great things, but Shiro got married at least. At least he got married. And his hair changed. I'm not sure how to feel about that. It's okay. He's a true space dad now, but no longer in space because he retired. So if they thought this would satisfy fans, they were sorely mistaken, unfortunately. I love you, Shiro, but this season did not do you any favors. I'm so sad. My favorite character. But it messed up a lot of the characters, so Shiro wasn't the only one hurt badly. Now, I mean, speaking of characters that did get hurt really badly, let's talk about Lance, the poor boy. So we did get a lot of him this season, and, you know, it was amazing to see just how much he has grown since the first season. And we did get to see a lot of Lance this season, and I really like seeing him interact with Keith. It seemed like they were actually friends this season, instead of whatever was going on, like, they barely interacted for the past, like, 3-4 seasons, which is really a shame because, you know, they had a good friendship going on. But let's be honest here, most of the time he spent the season was being worried for Allura, because, I mean, he had a good reason since there was this impending doom upon her because she did end up dying. But, I mean, he wasn't really too much of his own person anymore, which was really sad to see because he had such a good personality. But speaking of Allura, this season made Allurance canon, so yay, but also it killed Allurance, so boo. You know, she died. So Lance, you know, he finally got the courage to ask her on a date. And then after that, he basically professed his love to her, like 10 minutes later. Okay, I'm just joking about that. But later in the episode, he professed his love to her. So things went from 0 to 100, like, super fast. And it was just a little bit rushed. I mean, I wouldn't call it too forced, because I noticed hints throughout the, you know, the other seasons. But definitely rushed. Like, come on, you could have at least done something in a previous season to, you know, he could have asked her out, you know, then. And then a little slower. Let's take it slow, because, you know, to see her die in this season, right after, you know, Lance, you know, is finally getting together with her, that's just rude. Yeah, if only it would have lasted longer. So, let's talk about him and his epilogue, or his endgame. The end of the series for him. Lance becomes a farmer. And I know a lot of you are not happy with this. I know it could be possibly in character, because he's always been the one, you know, he's like, he did miss Earth a lot. He is very connected to his family, and that seems like something they might do, but it definitely did not feel right for him, that everyone else was just going off, mostly doing space stuff, or being a diplomat or whatever, and he's just on his small farm on Earth, planting juniper flowers and missing Allura. Yeah, just not fair. Now to bring up something that actually surprised me with the season, that didn't really end up getting spoiled, that really made no sense, was that Lance got Altean markings. Allura gave them to him when she kissed him for the final time, and what the heck was that, guys? I really want to know what's up with that. Is that like something she could do all along? Is that she just realized she could do that? Did she only do that once? It's like her last parting gift. What? Explain this. You just got these markings. Like, Altean Lance was literally a headcanon since season 1. People wanted this, like, him to be Altean, but not like this. I haven't really seen anyone that's happy about this. They're just confused about, you know, what are his powers? Like, I mean, does he have powers? What is with this? Like, does he have Altean powers? Anything? Is he gonna live a long time? Anything? Or is it just markings? Because they did glow, so there's that. So there might be a little more to them than, you know, we originally looks like, but that's just very puzzling, if you ask me. So then, along with that, I think, yeah, I mentioned, so making Lance, you know, kind of this Altean thing. I mean, if he's not Altean, if he's just human with cheek marks, I guess, but it makes him look Altean. So that would kind of get rid of his whole thing, how he was a boy from Cuba. He was just no ordinary. He wasn't some Altean prince or anything. But that kind of negates it, I feel like, a little bit. You know, I mean, there's not much to it. It's really not that complicated, but it still irks me a bit. So also, if in the epilogue, basically his whole thing that he became a farmer, as I previously mentioned, but basically we can see that he he's pretty much sad for the rest of his life, it looks like. His whole life revolves around Allura. He's always thinking about her. He's always talking about her. Even on his farm, he's surrounded by the Junaberry flowers that, you know, were a big part of this season, at least kind of symbolically or whatever. And his markings are a constant reminder of that fact. That's just very tragic. And, you know, it'd be cool to see him move on. Like, they should have shown him maybe moving on or something. But no, he's stuck with thinking about Allura for the rest of his life. And that is just very sad to see. So another thing was that Alfor was extremely accepting of Lance. It seemed like almost immediately he kind of accepted him. I don't know what that was about, compared to like Coran even. Like, oh, you're a good guy. Lance, that was just a little bit too quick, I feel like. Yeah, but that's not really a big issue because they had other things to worry about. But like, honestly, what sucks about the epilogue, one of the other parts besides like everything else, is that it implies that Allura's never going to return, which is very conflicting with the final image of the show. Actually, if you go after the credits, there is one more image, and it shows the lions that they left their paladins. They just left them. I know. We don't know why, but I'll get into that later, I believe. It shows them leaving, and you can see an image of Allura, or kind of her silhouette there. So maybe there is a way to get her back, and that would be good to know, because so far from at least from the epilogue, it's conflicting, because either did they leave a year after and they're taking like 20 years to get there wherever she is, or is just the epilogue's out of order, or yeah, the epilogue just makes no sense. It just doesn't make sense, because Lance is going to be mourning the loss of Allura for his whole life, it seems, which is really terrible. So let's move on to another character, which is Matt, and negative 10 points here for his haircut. If you liked it, I'm sorry, but I really was not a fan. I liked how his hair was changing, but this is one haircut, one hair change for him that I personally did not like. I know a lot of other people didn't either, and he didn't do too much this season, which I'm going to be saying that for a lot of characters, but he really did not do much. But speaking of unnecessary things, is Matt's robot girlfriend, N7. So it turns out she's a robot. I need to rewatch that part, but apparently that's what people are saying. And that's, wow, Matt, okay. I guess that's pretty cool, but why didn't they explore that a little bit more? I guess they were cute, but it just felt a little bit off. And then I guess speaking of robots, we have Pidge's creation, I guess, what should call him. I was about to call him boyfriend, but that's probably not what it's supposed to be. Chip, at the very end of the season. Literally, like, one of the last things that happens. Makes no sense. He serves no purpose at all. I know Chip was from Vehicle Voltron, which is a sequel to the 84 series. So if that's supposed to be indicative that Voltron would get a sequel or spin-off, I guess that could be it. But otherwise, why did you do this? You just added in a character for literally no reason the last couple minutes of the show. And he didn't do anything. Chip didn't even do anything. Very sad. So, yeah, so I mean, do I want to spin off anymore? I'm not sure. I'm not sure anyone really does anymore after that ending. So also I should get into the fact that a lot of plot lines were dropped from the series entirely. You know, series just sometimes do that, and it's really sad to see that. Voltron did it quite a bit. Like, one that comes to mind, you know, to me very easily is the clone plotline. So they did kind of end the clone plotline with Shiro kind of being revived and going into Coran's body. But I feel like they should have, I don't know, there could have been something else about that, because there was no mention of the clone ever. Like, what happened to him? Okay, I mean, I know he was evil, but clones have feelings too. And a lot of other things, I would say, like like all the other clones, maybe they could have done something with that. I don't know. We never really got too much of an explanation after like the first season why Hagar was so interested in Shiro. They could have brought that back. So just a lot of missed things with the clone plotline. I'm sure there are others, but one more that I thought about is, like, they never addressed Shiro's disease being gone. Word of God said that actually in the clone body Shiro was made without a disease. All these clones were made so they did not have that muscle disease that would slowly waste away at Shiro's muscles and render him unable to do, you know, anything. Which is good, but it was never explained in the show. So how would fans, you know, normal fans would be like, maybe, like, what is Shiro supposed to, is Shiro gonna live? He's still like you know, his clock is going away quickly. So maybe that's why he wants to get married so fast, to be honest. Like, okay, now my muscles are going away. But actually, I feel like they should have addressed that, or, I don't know, said something. Because, should we just assume that it's gone? I don't know if that's a safe or fair to us, just think we'd assume that. Okay, so now let's get into Lotor's generals. So first of all, Aksha didn't do too much this season. She just did some stretching and talked about how terrible her life was. I'm sure she did like a little bit, some little things, but the generals were pretty useless this season. But I mean, at least Zethrid and Ezor are back. Yay! I mean, I know there was a lot of outcry for that. Both of them did look like they died in season 7, and they did seem like a couple. So that was very made fans even more angry, because not only did Adam die, but it looked like Ezor and Zethrid did too. So then they brought him back this season, and it seemed like Ezor was always supposed to, it always seemed like Zethrid was supposed to be back, but we don't really know how the heck they survived. And you'll see that they both kind of have a real quick redemption right there. I guess Keith says, okay, we're good now, you know, we don't want to kill anybody anymore, we're good, we're good. And so, another thing, it seems like another hit with the damage control, another thing that they did to make the season, you know, more palatable, I guess, or better for fans that were mad about Adam and Ezor and Zethrid dying, was that they brought Ezor back, which seems like damage control, because count the number of times she speaks this season, once. And look at the way that I believe Aksha was talking to Zethrid about Ezor. It was as if, like, Ezor, you know, had left her and was gone. But turned out she's okay, and, you know, ta-da, she's back, she magically appeared. And how did, yeah, this just doesn't make any sense. So that's why a lot of people think that was damage control. And in addition, how did Ezor get in contact with Aksha, or how did that happen? And she got redeemed too. A lot of, you know, holes that we have to mentally patch up, of leaps in logic if we want things to make sense. Okay, so let's quickly talk about some returning Alteans, or some, I guess, kind of important Alteans. So we have Ramel, did absolutely nothing again, just did some shopping, pretty much, and was on the Atlas crew, I believe. And then also we have that Merla, who is from, I believe, some comics, or at least from the older show. I'm not 100% sure what she did. I forgot to look it up. I was supposed to look it up. But it does sound like some very witchy magic thing. But she didn't really do much either. So I guess it was just kind of, oh, you know, the reference is there. Merla, there you are, you Altean. But yeah, that sucked that she wasn't really in there. And so let's talk about the MFV pilots now. And I was actually really sad to see that James did not get a lot of screen time this season. It felt like, it seems like a lot of it went to Kincaid, which is great. Like, I loved Day 47. That was a great episode. It was really funny and entertaining. But at the same time, James really took a backseat, which is kind of weird, because we saw him smile a couple times, which is cool, very nice. But I feel like it just was very different from the previous season, where we were expecting a lot more from him. Like, potentially they'd be the start of a spin-off. But I didn't really feel like that. We did get a lot of Rizavi and Kincaid, which is great, like I said. So that was good to see, at least. But James and Keith didn't really have any conclusion, any closure about their relationship. Like, they seemed like, you know, they were real rivals as children. Then it seemed like they kind of grew past that, but there was no conclusion to that. And that was like a real loose end that I was really hoping they'd at least touch on a tiny bit more in the series. So yeah, and in general, the MFEs did not interact with the Paladins, which is also very sad to see. I'm going to be saying things are sad to see a lot, because we had there was still a lot that this show needed to do to make the ending satisfying, and a lot of this just did not happen, which is unfortunate. And now I need to talk about Lotor, because it would be an absolute shame if I didn't, because he was such a great character, one of my favorites, obviously, and I think my favorite villain of the entire show. And the treatment he got this season was pretty bad. Like, it just really sucked. We got his backstory. We got, you know, almost all of his backstory, which is so nice. He was so cute to see. I love little baby Lotor. But at the same time, it showed how misguided he was. How, you know, over the years, his treatment, the way that other Galra treated him was just messed up. Even, you know, his parents and whatever. And so, to show all that, and then to see how he just followed in the footsteps of his parents and that cycle of abuse, it's a really bad message that a lot of abuse survivors would rather not see. And that's really unfortunate that they had to play into that. Although I always did kind of think he would turn on them. But I guess maybe they could have talked about it a bit more. They could have done something with Lotor to make it something else. I don't really know. I'm not like the best writer, so I wouldn't know how to deal with that. But I feel like they should have done something else to make it seem, you know, a little less terrible for Lotor. And also we saw his freaking corpse like melting. Like, are you serious? That's not very nice to show. How did he get there? First of all, if he was like melted, did he get melted after he returned from the quintessence field, or was that during? Was this consciousness like this much and then it's just gone? Just really sad. Like, I was hoping to actually see him this season, but just really, it was just in Allura's like hallucinations and all that. Very disappointing, I'd say. So let's talk about, I guess speaking of things to do with Alteans and whatever, we saw that Lance in one of the seasons, I'm not sure, maybe it was like season 4, 5, he got an Altean broadsword, which is really cool, and it kind of gave him a connection to Allura and her father. But what do you know? That was never brought up again. We were waiting for so long for that to be used, and ta-da, nothing, as usual. But I also need to start talking about Honerva, because she was a huge focus of the season, the main villain, which I felt almost was, I mean, I guess that made sense, but I feel like her backstory came way too late. It should have been done last season, maybe. Because all of a sudden we see that she cares a lot, almost too much about her family. Like, where was this before? You learned the truth about, your past and your husband's past when you, in season 3. You know, we got that flashback episode about the original Paladins back then. What's with the sudden change in attitude? I feel like that's just not right, in my opinion. So, yeah, but speaking of which, Honerva and Zarkon did get a little time to be redeemed, but then Lotor didn't. He's just magically there at the end. What the heck? Like, Zarkon did not, I don't think he shouldn't have, I don't think any of them, like, should have gotten that, but, wow, just, if anyone, Lotor maybe should have, but not Honerva, Zarkon, they were bad. But, I mean, Zarkon was dead, which I thought he would return, never did, so that was pretty interesting to see. So we're getting towards the end of the list, finally. Oh my gosh, this is gonna be forever. But basically, a lot of people mentioned, they remember a lot that, I can't remember what season, maybe it was season 4, where Keith almost does a suicide attempt, basically. That's what, it wasn't supposed to, like, apparently they didn't want people to think of it like that, but that's basically what it was. He was sacrificing himself on Nexella, I believe, and I believe Matt saw it, and I think they were supposed to bring it up, but it never happened. So if you guys remember about that scene, let me know. I'll probably look into that a bit more, but yeah, I do remember him, like, almost, be willing to sacrifice himself for the team. And that was never brought up, and which should be a huge moment. Most other shows, or a good show, would say that was a huge moment. That needs to be discussed. Why did Keith think that was okay? And all that. A lot of discussion about this would have been great, but we never got closure for that. Like a lot of other things with this show. So in addition, we see that there was no explanation really of why Keith has always had some, some abilities that had to do with quintessence, his sensitivity to it, or any connection to the druids. That was never explained, which is really important because, like, I always love those kind of things, like, because Keith is half Galra, so maybe that had to do with it, or maybe he's just special. Like, he always had some sort of connection because he's the one who was able to track down the Blue Lion almost by himself until everyone else showed up, and they were able to finally, unlock the Blue Lion because of Lance was there. But yeah, that was never explained. I would have liked that to be explained, to be honest, of anything. So, and then we have bigger picture things like how the heck is learning to give life what Lotor taught Allura equivalent to restoring all realities? Like, are you kidding me? Maybe, I feel like Honerva could have, done something to reverse everything, but no, it was Allura who knew how to do it magically. Ta-da! So Allura could restore all realities, but, I mentioned this, I think, but this is a separate point. She should brought Adam back. Like, come on, guys. That'd been great. She never did. So also there was the restoration of both Altea and Dibazal, which, honestly undoes a lot of the character motivations for Allura and Coran. I mean, Allura's gone, so she doesn't need any more character motivations, but wow, they just reversed all that, didn't they? Such a happy ending. Yeah, like, I felt like maybe the Alteans could have lived on Earth, or they would have found a new planet for Altea. I guess that, but wow, it actually returned, which is just kind of crappy, and ta-da, everything's fixed now, except Allura's gone, Lance suffers, Shiro gets married to Rando. Yeah, moving on. I mentioned that a lot already. So the alternate reality stuff was just overall very convoluted this season, and I feel like it would have been really cool to bring back the Alteans from the alternate reality, who were like the evil Alteans who wanted to brainwash people and spread their influence throughout all realities. That was a really cool thing from season 3, but they never brought it back. It was just all Honerva. It was just all by herself, and then she managed to brainwash all these Alteans from the colony instead of Alteans that were already like evil, you know? That was disappointing, I feel like. So how did another thing was that how did Hagar have Zarkon's soul or whatever it was in her mind? She didn't kill him. The reason why apparently that she had the other paladins, older paladins, was because she's the one who, you know, managed to take them down, which is an interesting reveal, which is cool actually to see. But Zarkon was there too. Like, she wasn't there when he died. Lotor was the one who did that, so maybe she did some other stuff, but that wasn't explained, so that was very sad. We also should learn, or we never learned, what happened with Kova. Like, he was a space cat that, you know, he was exposed to quintessence too, so he kind of lived forever, and he was Lotor's favorite, I guess, pet, and he gave him to Nardi, and then once Narti had to be killed because she was, you know, Kova was the kind of controlling Nardi to be the spy. Because of that, you know, Kova was just sent off, but then he went back to, I believe, Hagar, and then stuff happened, but no explanation about that. I feel like I'm getting confused myself, because so much happened with Kova, but it's never really placed importance on. But yeah, so a little closure on that would have been nice. So, I also want to know, for something pretty small, is that where did the Atlas crew go during the fusion? Like, we see Shiro there. Did they just get shooed off into space or something when the Voltron Atlas fusion happened? Because they are never shown. I mean, it was amazing to see that Shiro was kind of almost a paladin again with the rest of the team, but where did the rest of his team go? Like, what? It makes no sense. They probably should have said something about it, but they never did apparently, so wow, okay. I mean, I know they're less important, but still, come on. Moving on, I also would have really liked to know what happened to the Alkari. Because, you know, I believe maybe in the 3rd episode, we saw that Pidge kind of had a connection to them, and we saw that their planet was destroyed. That was kind of whole the message is things need to die. Which, speaking of that, so things need to go, and, you know, new beginnings, but then Altea and Dives all are back, so, ta-da, Alkari got destroyed in the stick, unless it's back, and I missed that. But, what happened to the denizens, the citizens of that planet? I don't think we ever got closure for that, which, you know, why didn't they bring that up again? That was a very important part of one of the episodes of the season. And, so for other things, for Voltron and Atlas, they just kind of let things happen. Like, we saw the white line again, which is cool, but they got killed. Like, what? And then the Atlas crystal was being destroyed, and they just all stood there? Like, what? That's crazy. There's more instances, I'm sure. But, like, things just had to happen, and they just let it happen for plot's sake, and then so they could fix it later, or because it seemed like there was almost no other choice. You know, shows had to do that, but come on, let's be realistic here. They should have done something. A lot of times, they just felt like lesser versions of themselves this whole season. So it's such a shame because there is so much potential for the show. So you'll see that they spammed a lot of things like turbo wings, and also the freaking Atlas wings. No, sorry, the Voltron Atlas fusion wings at the end, which were huge to push Honerva's mech back. Like, what? That was insane and ridiculous. Like, explain that. Why? Okay, that was kind of nitpicky, but that was just a weird thing to do. Like, make them that big. Like, are you serious? But other things, we'll see that a lot of other characters didn't do much either this season, like Sam and Iverson. They didn't do much. That's another thing off, because there's just so many characters. I don't blame them for not making them all be able to do something, but they could have done something a little bit. I think it had a little more importance, but I guess just the treatment of characters. Some were just given a lot of screen time, others not so much, and they were just kind of pushed aside and not as important anymore. Oh well, I guess. So, also, you know what sucks is that we didn't get much Shay and Hunk this season, too. Like, we've been waiting since season 1, really, for any, like, real deeper thing, and it's not much. We got a little tiny bit last in season 7, and then this season, I guess we got a little bit as well. I don't even know. Yeah. yes, I guess we kind of see her at the end, but that's about it. Finally, people are still mad that Hunk really didn't get an arc this season either. I mean, he's a great guy, and, you know, he's a chef for the rest of his life, it seems. A diplomatic chef. But I guess it's just, they wanted something more. And I do agree that that sucked. Also, speaking of Balmerins, which, getting back to Shay, they just all magically, all those Balmerins just came. Like, ta-da, we can do this now, we can make this thing to help you save the universe. Okay, good to know that you can do that now. Thanks. That felt very Avatar-like. All of a sudden at the end, here's something that can save you. Oh, they fused. I believe they were helped Atlas fuse, I think, with Voltron. But I could be wrong. But I'll need to watch that again because I haven't watched like the second half of the season again. But yeah, so that also was a tad bit annoying. Okay, we are almost done here. So the Paladins this time around made dumb decisions. Like they literally were like, we're gonna go hunt down all these Altean mechs when we weren't able to beat one end of last season, and Atlas had to come in and then help us, and then even then it was tricky. Like, what do you think you can do? You're just able to just do it now all of a sudden, and take on like dozens, if not hundreds of them. That's basically what happened. Yeah. So, and also the whole season just felt rushed. It just, a lot of the way this season was paced was just very odd. I feel like, you know, like the mecha weapon monster that killed the Galra is brought back, but then it's like just killed right away. I mean, I'm glad they brought that back because that was one thing I probably would have said they should have addressed if they hadn't, but they did. So that was like one thing they addressed. But it's just killed. Just a lot of things. Just like little things like that. Just overall, like, why did you rush this season like that? Probably, I mean, they only had so many episodes, but it's crazy. So yeah, there's pacing issues throughout the series. That's not even a season problem. Just in general, Voltron has been really bad with pacing, which is unfortunate because they did have some pretty good seasons. But after a while, it just went way too fast for some things. And so I don't know if I'd really ding this off that there was too many fillers because I really enjoyed them, but I guess they were just kind of at weird places in the season, and it just didn't make too much sense to have them there. And I don't know, I guess some people didn't like that there was so many, so I understand that. But even though they were entertaining, there was just a lot of them. So, and finally, the last one that I have on my list, we'll see, that's probably it, because I'm dying now, is that the Lions just leave their Paladins this season at the very end. Like, oh my gosh. I mean, I know they're not that attached to them, because we know that they can change Paladins, but oh my gosh, this was so sad. Like, wow, okay, our job here is done. Whoosh, they eat it out. So, I mean, of course, maybe they're finding Allura, which the last picture of the season is kind of hinting at, or something with that. But, man, they just left like that. Without, I mean, obviously they can explain, but they're sentient. I just didn't like that. Like, why did they leave? But, I mean, I guess that means no more Voltron, which leads to, like, a different kind of spin-off, maybe, if they want to do that. We'll see. So, with that, those are my reasons. I had 65 on there. I'll see if the final video has 65. But besides that, those are all the reasons I have. And I also wanted to quickly mention some things I felt like, you know, you could do to improve the season overall. Now, to end off this video, since I am dying here, I do have a few thoughts or suggestions about what Voltron maybe could have done to final season to make it a little bit better for the fans. So first, we could either close off Shiro and Keith's relationship in the season early on to kind of make it clear that, you know, they've both moved on. They're both like, they don't need each other as much as they did before. So maybe in the first episode, when they were supposed to spend time with their family, you could have saw Shiro and Keith talking about that a bit. Or maybe on Clear Day they could have had a moment, but instead, of course, both those times, they really didn't interact much. There was a lot of opportunity for that. I would also probably not kill off Allura, because she meant so much to so many people that I think maybe Honerva could have done something by herself, being able to reverse all that she had done. It had to be her and her only that could reverse all the damage, and Allura didn't have to step in, and then Allura and Lance maybe could have, you know, had a nice end together, had a, you know, family or whatever. So that would have been nice. I honestly would have done something else with Lotor, maybe had him alive and be redeemed in some way, and then he would have to take down Hagar, or, I mean, because if before they showed his whole backstory, I was like, okay, maybe Lotor is going to return and it's going to be Hagar who's going to take him down, and she'll be the one who had to put an end to this family. But no, they didn't really do anything with that, so it's disappointing. I mean, a lot of those points that I addressed in this video, I would have liked to see, that things that were missing, they could have brought back up again. That's disappointing. Also, give bigger roles, even, give more for Hunk and Shay to do, give more for Matt to do. Don't introduce Chip. That was dumb. There's so many side characters that was potential. Maybe, I guess, Azor being back was good. Just give her a little more, make it so it doesn't seem really weird that her placement's in there. So probably a lot of last minute writing and correcting to the season, which is really bad. And if you're gonna have the Lions leave at the end, don't do that epilogue. That epilogue was just bad. Almost nobody thinks that Shiro deserved a random person. And if you're gonna give him Curtis, if you were gonna make Shiro marry Curtis, they should have definitely built that up more, I would say, throughout the season. Because Curtis never acknowledged Shiro and Shiro never acknowledged Curtis, really. That's basically how it was. So the relationship came out of nowhere, and it would have been nice to see. I mean, I know in a few years in the future, people do meet, get to know each other more. That could be realistic. But for us as fans watching it, we don't know them between. You can't just show it, show that, skipping over all that, and then ending the series like that, basically. So yeah, fans felt really wrong there. So it's just a couple things. There's a whole bunch more. I know a lot of people are doing like fix-it-fix to try and fix things. But I hope that was just kind of for people that were unsure, like, what the heck why are people yelling about Voltron? I thought the season finale was great. For people that are confused, here's what the fans are saying for the most part. So I hope I could have clarified things for you a bit. So that's basically all that I had to say. That was a ton. This is probably a very long video. I'll see how it is when I finish editing. But yeah, long video. So I forgot to make a note for myself to record this with my face. So basically, I just want to let you guys know that there is actually a petition going on to hopefully maybe get them to remove the epilogue, or, I don't know, change the ending of the show. I don't know. But it's done by fans, and it has over like 10,000 or 15,000. Might be 10,000 signatures at this point. But that's still a lot in only a couple days. So if you guys are looking to maybe do something to, maybe put in your part to see if you can get it changed. Like, some shows have done it before with enough fan outcry, so maybe it'll work here, maybe not. But I just want to let you guys know about that. But what you should not do is attack any of the actual staff, people that worked on the show. That is not appropriate at all. So I just want to let you guys know about that before I ended this video. Also, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe if you're new here. Give it a like, and also click that notification bell so you can get notified of any future videos. I am doing quite a few reviews coming up for different shows, as well as, Seniors is returning. So finally for that, we get to talk about that again. It's probably my last Voltron video, guys. Sorry about that for those of you who loved it, but I don't want to, there's obviously no point in theorizing for stuff anymore since it's over. And the series ended on quite a low note, so it made me sad, and I was planning on doing other things too, making a whole awesome review. But here I am talking about, why people hate the show now, and that is very sad. But still, make sure if you enjoyed this video and you enjoy our content, you can either become a patron, or we have a Cartoonverse where you can talk with me and a bunch of other people about Voltron, Seniors, any other show, basically. And you can become a fan club member, which is only 50 cents, and you can support us and get exclusive videos early, like this one. I'm going to be putting up there early, because this has a lot of editing, and I'll be posting many versions, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and if you're still watching, that's amazing. You stayed all the way till the end, because I had so much explaining to do. There was so much. I'll miss you, Voltron, but why'd you do everyone dirty like that? That's what I want to know. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments below, if you liked the season or not. As usual, yada yada yada. And I'll see you in the next video. Have an animated day.